Folks, November 4th is Election Day, and after the election, there will be a new superintendent of education here in South Carolina. Joining me now is superintendent candidate Ed Murray. Good morning, Mr. Murray. How are you?
Good morning, Brandy. How are you doing?
I'm great. Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions here.
Well, I'm the American Party candidate for State Superintendent of Education, and of the three candidates running for this office, I'm the only one who's still in a school on a daily basis. I'm athletic director and assistant principal at Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School, and the only one of the three candidates who's been in the school since No Child Left Behind was passed. And we think that's a very important distinction to make in this race.
Well, I was speaking about a very important distinction with everybody's talking about is Common Core. What's your stance on Common Core as a possible superintendent? What would
I'm ready to move forward from the whole Common Core controversy, but what I want to see in the new standards that we establish are three primary things. Knowledge acquisition, what do we need to know? Knowledge application, how do we apply what we know? And most importantly to me is knowledge fluency, the depth and breadth of our understanding. So those three things, and that last being the most important, where over the past few years we haven't really been making sure our students know, for example, their multiplication tables. So they'd get to my physics class and they wouldn't know what 8 times 8 was without a calculator. So we need to get back to that fluency issue.
So what are your plans to bridge the gap that some say exists between rural schools and city schools?
Well, for me, I believe we need to create a vision of what a 21st century education should look like here in the state of South Carolina. And as part of that vision, we need to look at all of the disparities that exist within our schools. We need to look at transportation issues, infrastructure issues, curriculum delivery issues, funding issues, and we need to make sure that we're meeting all of the needs of all of the schools in our state. And we need to have that vision in order to allow us to move from where we are to where we want to be. We've got to have a roadmap for that.
So, you know, school safety is another major concern for not just parents, teachers, but everybody in the community that's involved. With what just happened recently in Washington, what are some things that you think as superintendent could be put into schools to protect our students?
Well, I think, one, administrators in schools today are doing a very good job of monitoring things in their school, and I know it's a primary concern for me and my school on a daily basis to make sure that we're proactive in addressing issues of bullying and issues of conflicts between students.
Absolutely.
And making sure that we're on top of even social media issues. But there's a lot more that we need to do in terms of changing the way we deliver curriculum to our students so that we create an environment that allows the students to progress without creating these dynamic issues that lead to violence in our schools.
You know, during the gubernatorial debates that they had over the past 2 weeks, one of the questions that came up was teacher salaries. That teacher salaries need to be raised because many of the teachers is leaving this region, this area, because we're not as competitive as other schools. As superintendent, what would you do? Would you lobby for more increases?
I absolutely would lobby for more increases. I think there are two things that contribute to that. One is the work environment for teachers, because we've gotten to the point where we're micromanaging a lot of what our teachers do, and that's destroying the work environment for them. We need to trust them to be the professionals they are. But I also did a recent study comparing salaries between people with bachelor's degrees, master's, and doctorate degrees outside the teaching profession and within the teaching profession, compared those salaries, and we're anywhere from $7,000 to $17,000 behind that average around the country, and we need to make up that gap between those two differentials.
For the final question here, Mr. Murray. Lastly, you know, when it comes to job creation, you know, we do pretty well here in the Palmetto State. We've seen how many jobs have been added over the past few years, but many of the jobs, folks are feeling being outsourced, or they might not stay. What can we do to make sure these jobs are here for the future leaders, the children that are growing up, who are going to be the leaders of tomorrow here?
Well, the primary thing we need to do is get back to that fluency issue again. We need to make sure our students have those soft skills, the reading comprehension skills, the communication skills, the mathematical skills, because they need to have the ability to learn what their employers want them to learn. And if we're sending them to them with just basic skills that don't represent that deep understanding, that's why our employers are having a problem training them in the new positions they're offering. But I believe if we get back to that fluency issue, we'll be providing our employers with what they need in terms of trainable employees in their workforce.
Wow. All right. Ed Murray here, one of the superintendent candidates here for South Carolina. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely. And don't forget, folks, November 4th is Election Day. That's taking place next week. So go out and vote. It's your civic duty. There's more Good Day coming up right after this.